Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Sue, and I'm a product marketing manager for Optimize 360. So I'm excited to kick off the product Sandbox stage this morning. Later on in the session, I'll be joined by Yost Schepper, who is the head of conversion optimization at Spotify, and we'll be talking a little bit about how Spotify used Optimize 360 to increase premium subscriptions on their website. So with today's technology, people are accessing the web across many different devices and channels. They're making decisions on the go and doing things really, really quickly. So this is making consumers very impatient and demanding, and they're feeling a lot more empowered than they ever were before. So this is giving a big opportunity for marketers and changing the way that marketers must work to interact with their customers. So it's even more important to be able to use the data that you have to make sure that you're delivering the right message at the right time to all of your customers. And in order to do this, to find that right message, a lot of marketers are actually turning to testing and experimentation. In fact, in a recent study we did, we found that leading marketers are twice as likely than mainstream marketers to use some sort of testing or experiment service to do this. And that leads us to Google Optimize 360. How many of you guys in the audience have used Optimize or heard of it? Oh, good. There's a lot of you guys, so you guys are familiar with the product. So Optimize 360 is the enterprise version of our free tool, Google Optimize, which is an A/B testing tool. Optimize 360 is part of Google Marketing Platform, and it's also natively integrated with Google Analytics. So this means that the data that you're seeing in your testing tool is from your Google Analytics account. This also allows you to use your analytics goals and metrics as experiment objectives. And so here is just how easy it is to use our optimized visual editor to make changes on your site. And we've made the tool pretty easy. There's really 4 simple steps to set up an experiment. So once everything is set up, you can use the optimized visual editor, so that previous screen that you saw, to make changes to your site. So once those changes are made, you need to select your analytics goals and metrics as experiment objectives. And if you're using the Optimize 360 version, you have the nice capability of actually using your analytics audiences as targeting. So basically telling us, Optimize, who you want to reach in your experiment. And from there, all you really need to do is set the experiment live. And that's it. And one integration that we have available in both Optimize and Optimize 360 is our integration with Google Ads. So we actually announced this integration at last year's event. And what this allows you to do is build custom landing pages for your Google Ads campaigns and tie them to an optimized experiment. So this allows you to, for example, if let's say you're Spotify and you want you have an ad running for premium subscriptions and you want to build a dedicated landing page for that ad, you would build it in Optimize, tell us which keyword you want to target. It could be an ad group or a campaign. And so what happens is that when someone searches on Google Search for music streaming service and a Spotify ad appears, Optimize will deploy either the original or a different variation of the site that you created. So that leads us to Spotify. So this is the integration that Spotify actually utilized, the integration between Optimize 360 and Google Ads to increase their premium subscriptions. Okay, so we will actually, I'll show you a video of the story that we did with Optimize. I'll show you a little bit more about actually how they use the integration.
Spotify is the world leader of music streaming, but you can also listen to audiobooks or even podcasts on it.
We operate in over 60 markets. We have 71 million subscribers to Spotify Premium.
Our goal is basically to improve conversion rates from free to premium. It's very important first to understand what our users are looking for.
One of the challenges is localization. At Spotify, we have loads of local knowledge. We have great teams. They want to do a lot of localization for their specific markets.
In Germany, it's quite surprising that the most streamed content is not music, but is an audiobook. We decided to launch a test with Optimize 360. We wanted our users searching for audiobooks on Google to see a very dedicated landing page to audiobooks.
So in this case, with the direct integration with AdWords and Optimize 360, when people have searched on AdWords for audiobooks only, then show them this page. We did 50% of all traffic. We sent that one to the normal premium page, and then the other 50% of the traffic, we would send it to like a rebranded premium page with a lot of audiobooks on there.
Optimize 360 made the process very easy. If we had wanted to run this audiobook experiment without Optimize 360, it would have taken a couple of months, but it took a couple of days. The results were far above our expectations. The audiobook landing page had generated an increase of 24% of premium subscription. Before Optimize 360, we weren't even testing anything. It has changed the way Spotify is trying to be more and more locally relevant across all of its markets.
A/B testing is about learning about your customer. It's still important that we learn a lesson from it, and that's why we want to do as much testing as possible.
Okay, and now I'd like to invite Yost to Schepper to the stage. Yost is the head of conversion optimization at Spotify. Okay, thank
Hi.
you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I want to give you a big thank you because Yost is from Stockholm, but he also has a very important event coming up this weekend. So he will have to leave here quickly after our session. So big thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm actually getting married this Saturday, so it's kind of important that I make it back to Stockholm on time.
Yeah.
So
I don't want Google to be blamed for you missing your wedding, so we'll make sure that you get here on time. So a lot of us are familiar with Spotify and your business, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role and your team?
sure. So I'm actually based in Stockholm, Sweden, as I said, which is also the headquarters of Spotify, but maybe not everybody knows. I'm leading a team of CRO specialists. Some of them are designers, some of them are actual developers, and also a small team that does reporting as well. We work for both the business and for the R&D teams at Spotify. And our main focus is subscription. So we're trying to convert as many people as possible to become active subscribers at Spotify.
Cool. And how does A/B testing fit into your goal of increasing subscriptions?
So except increasing subscriptions, also for improving the lifetime value. So some of the A/B tests we try to do, for example, together with the business teams, are regarding localization. So a lot of the tests are like R&D doesn't always believe localization is necessary, and then business thinks like, hey, we do need to have localization, then we try to test that so that R&D focuses more on localization afterwards.
Cool.
So one example, for example, would be in Japan, where business got the idea in the end that free was not a good thing to mention, because free is often considered to be piracy in Japan. So then we made a product page in Optimize, which didn't mention free at all, and was only focusing on paying subscriptions. And that worked pretty well, and then R&D actually implemented it.
Great. And then, so we know that you're using the integration between Google Optimize 360 and Google Ads. How to build custom landing pages to kind of help with localization in other markets that Spotify operates in. What are some other ways that you're using Optimize 360?
So we do it for experiments on the homepage, experiments on landing pages, on the product landing pages, then also on the thank you page, and also the account pages, and sometimes in the checkout as well.
Okay.
And only in the web. We don't do any testing on the apps.
Okay. So I think a lot of us kind of have been trained and told that in terms of, A/B testing and trying to find optimizations on your site, you should do the most optimizations as close to the checkout page as possible. Has your team found that the most impactful tests that you guys have run have been on the checkout, or have you also seen impactful tests across on the homepage, for example?
So yeah, the biggest improvements have been on the checkout. But I guess in general, it's all about where you have the biggest drop-off in your funnel.
Okay.
So if the drop-off is already on your homepage, then you should start doing something there. If you have mostly the biggest drop-off in your checkout, then you should do it there. Another page which is quite interesting is the thank you page, because it's a great place for upsells. A lot of people are not using, a lot of companies are not using that as a place for upselling stuff.
And has the integration with Google Analytics been really helpful? Because you mentioned looking at your checkout, your funnel, and seeing where the biggest drop-off is. Has your team been using your Google Analytics data to try to identify those spots?
Yeah, definitely. We use Google Analytics for that, of course, also like internal data and other user data. But Google Analytics have definitely been big help in seeing where the drop-off in the funnel was.
So you guys have been using Optimize for a few years now. Would you say, besides the integration with the analytics, what have been some of the biggest benefits of the product?
The integration with AdWords as well was really helpful. And also because of the integration with Google Analytics, it's also quite easy to export all your data to Bigquery. So like with making that connection, we can actually quite easily compute the lifetime value for all of our experiments, which is actually a really big help.
Cool.
Because of a lot of our experiments, when they're based on, for example, payment method, they're not only about the actual subscription of like the actual conversion, but they're also based on like how the churn will develop afterwards.
Can you give us an example of how you've used analytics with BigQuery and Optimize?
Sure. So, for example, one test we did was regarding carrier billing in the UK. We had carrier billing as our main payment method for mobile. And then with Optimize 360, we changed the order of the payment methods. So we gave it to the second, we put it on the second tab instead of on the first tab. And that actually, although conversion rate went slightly down, in the end, the lifetime value went up by more than 10%.
Okay.
And that we saw afterwards when we connected everything with BigQuery and our own backend data.
Okay, so you did the analysis. You exported the data from analytics into BigQuery, and that's where you identified that lifetime value.
Exactly.
Increase.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. And then let's see what other questions I have. So audio streaming is a very competitive industry. Have you found that conducting A/B tests within Optimize has kind of helped your team become more agile and stay ahead of the competition in all your markets?
Yeah, so we're doing quite a bit more testing now. So in that sense, it has really been really helpful. So what we do against other competitors, we try to test our own unique selling points more and more with Optimize 360 and try to stand out against competitors. So also in that sense, it has been very helpful.
One question that the Optimize team that we get very often is from marketers and especially small businesses is there's our website is so large, our analytics data, it's really hard to find a particular point in the funnel or just whatever the website. There's just so many combinations of things to test. So how does your team figure out what might be the most impactful, or where do you guys get started with so many combinations and opportunities available to you guys?
So we use an external tool called Growth Hackers, or I think they just rebranded to Northstar. And that's where we gather all IDs, both our own IDs, but also IDs from the different business teams, from different local teams, or from the different R&D teams. And then every week or every 2 weeks, we make a little sprint where we select all the IDs, and we normally check them for how easy they are to do, how big we think the impact will be, and how confident we are that this will have this impact. And out of that, we give everything a score. And then we select the top scorers every week. Every week we do this shuffle again.
Oh, wow.
So every week we're looking at all new ideas coming in, if they might be higher or lower. And sometimes we adjust the value as well if we think it actually is more important or more likely to happen. And then we select the top 5 or top 10 IDs every week and test them.
Can anyone at the company submit an idea to your team for an optimization?
Everybody who has access to the tool, yeah.
Cool. And then, so your team does that evaluation on a weekly basis. So how many tests on average are you guys running in a given month?
In a month, maybe around 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's 50 across Spotify.com and also in all the markets as well?
Yeah, Spotify.com. So website only. There are loads of more tests being done in the app, but that's not something that we touch.
Okay. And then going back to the video, you had a really great line in there when you talked about, A/B testing is learning about your customer. And there's been recent articles about A/B testing. I think in the past couple months that A/B testing is dead. What are your opinions on that? Is Spotify still finding value in doing A/B testing?
At least they still pay my salary, so I guess. But yeah, I mean, the old way of A/B testing might be dead. like bring all your traffic to 2 versions and then see whichever performs better. But we always take like a very small subset of all traffic. And that subset we then do a test on. So it's pretty much like personalization in that sense. Another thing that we do, we work together with the machine learning squads. So we kind of inform them where they should focus on.
Oh, right.
So that's kind of how we work together.
Right. Can you give us an example of maybe something you've recently worked with your machine learning team?
So they are, for example, thinking now, like, how should we apply machine learning to the main landing pages? And let's say that you have like 100 or 150 different variables there which you could focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we tell them which 10 variables they should actually focus on, and that they can ignore all the 140 other variables which are then not that important.
Okay. Cool. And then, so I know that you guys are using multiple products in Google Marketing Platform, from Analytics and Optimize. Are there other products that you are using that you can tell us a little bit more how you guys are using them?
So, like my team, we're also in charge of Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager for the whole company. We use Google Analytics for the helicopter overview. So I think more than in the whole organization, about 700 people actually use it actively.
Wow.
We don't only use that on the web, but also in all the different apps, including like Chromecast and all over the place. So I don't even know exactly how many properties we have, but I think we are around 170 right now.
Okay. Wow, it's a pretty big account.
So pretty big, yeah. And Google Tag Manager as well. We use that for most of our external media when it comes to the web. We're using Google Tag Manager for that.
Okay.
For all the external media scripts to put them in there.
Cool. And then another product, surveys. How are you using that within the platform?
Good question. I actually don't really know how we're using that. I do know that we are using it,
okay,
but I'm not sure how we are doing that.
Okay. And then, so we talked a little bit about payment methods in the UK. Are there any, for the audience who's maybe managing some of their own tests on their website, is there maybe some insights or tips that you might want to give to other marketers who are looking to advance their testing strategy?
So one of the things I learned since joining Spotify is that normally you optimize till the big button, right? Till the button purchase. But actually you can even influence what happens in the backend afterwards. Like how many of your purchases, how many of your clicks actually becomes a purchase. So it's a really important place to optimize as well. Because normally if you look at, like, let's say that 60 or 70% of always that click on the button actually becomes a purchase. Mm-hmm. And in some easy ways, it's actually quite easy to increase that conversion rate there as well. And that is something where we normally don't really think about when it comes to CRO. We always optimize until that button and not when people actually click on that final purchase button.
Yeah, so it sounds like once once someone clicks on that button, you guys are doing additional optimizations beyond that flow that most others aren't.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that mainly means showing the right payment option to the right person. Mm-hmm. So you have you have the highest chance of that person actually converting.
Great. So that is all that we have for today. If you guys are interested in learning about Optimize, definitely check out in the product Sandbox. We have some of our product managers there, and also we'll be talking a little bit more about some of our new personalization features that we're releasing within Optimize in the next couple months. We're going to be announcing that at the 12:20 session for Gain Actionable Insights on your data. So hope to see you guys there, and then we will let you go and rush off to the airport and make sure you make it on time to your wedding.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.